3, 2, 1, go. So yeah, this is Sparkster. If you've ever seen Rocket Knight Adventures on the Sega Genesis, which is actually up directly after this run, then you know what the deal with this run is. This is pretty much a spin-off / sequel game to Rocket Knight Adventures. Features very similar controls. So the main mode of movement and attacking in this game is the rocket boost mechanic, which we charge with the attack button. And you're also seeing me use a rolling attack, which is actually specific to this game. No other game in the Rocket Knight series has it, and it's a very flexible form of attack. I just made a slight mistake there, but it's nothing major. Movement in this game is typically done with rocket boosting as much as possible, and then when I can't rocket boost, I want to use the rolling attack instead. I am limited by how much I can use the rolling attack because there's a hidden value in this game called exhaustion, where if I roll attack too frequently, like too many times in succession, I will actually lose control of Sparkster for about 3 seconds. And that typically happens when you roll attack 6 times consecutively. There's a couple of ways you can mitigate it, such as not rolling attacking for a bit, letting it drain, but the most efficient way to deal with it is by just taking damage. If you take damage, it completely resets the exhaustion meter, so that can be exploited in a lot of different ways throughout the run, which we'll see in the later stages. This first boss is a very simple affair where you simply attack his weak spot when it gets exposed. I was taking damage there, but I had a lot of spare health, so I wasn't really in danger. And it's actually to the runner's benefit to take quite a bit of damage in this game. You can see on this stage clear screen here, we're going to get 2 different bonuses. We get the stage bonus, which is always a static amount, that's always 10,000, and you also get this life bonus. The life bonus takes longer to tick up the more health you have, so to save time, you actually want to try and finish the stages with as little health remaining as possible, which introduces some very high-risk strats, like with damage management and damage boosting, which we will also see later on in the run. This is stage 2, the Steelworks. It's a very technical stage where the routing is just very tight. There's some very interesting choices of ricochets, such as that.
It's also one of the levels that are unique to normal and higher difficulties.
That's right, yeah. The difficulties in this game are divided by the number of stages that are actually present in the run. This is normal mode, which has all of the regular 8 stages of the game. On easy mode, there'd be only 5 stages, and on hard mode, there's a hidden 9th stage. This is also one of the only stages in the game to feature instant death hazards everywhere, such as these rollers. Like, if I accidentally boost into those rollers or get knocked into them, it's an instant death. All right, I've got an audio cue here. Luke, what's going on here?
Okay, so this is a stage 2 boss. We want to enter this boss on the left-hand side of the screen, otherwise he'll spawn off-screen, which can waste a lot of time. Typically what we did in the past was we would sit on the side and we'd do regular attacks with our sword, as when we attack with our sword, that does a certain amount of damage, and when we do sword beams, that does less damage, so we want to hit him with our sword. But we recently integrated a new strat where we would attack him with our sword, but also charge up our boost meter and boost into him a couple times in order to do more damage that way.
So don't panic, everybody. The next level is an auto-scroller, so...
Yeah, that explains why the runner just got up and left.
What?
Nobody panic.
Yeah, traditionally, if you've ever seen Draco Dan actually do this level, he more or less just stands exactly where he's at and just tanks whatever damage he does for the auto-scroller.
This is some great gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, when I play this game, I opt to not take really as little damage. I take as little damage as I can, but
Risk reward. It's a real thing.
It is. Yeah.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you. Funnily enough, this is the fastest way you can do this section. Because by actively playing this section, all you can actually really do is introduce lag into the game. It's one of the factors of running this game in general, managing the lag that happens. And if I'm going around destroying enemies, they're just going to keep respawning, and I'm going to keep lagging the game. So it's actually faster for me to do absolutely nothing like that. I am taking damage, but after this mini-boss that's coming up, I'm going to just heal all that damage straight off. The lag management that I mentioned also feeds into how I take my damage boosting, because taking damage is one of the things that generally causes lag in this game. Like, it's only a couple of frames at a time generally, but it is there, and it's a constant issue. The boss of this stage that's coming up will be the first massive instance of damage boosting, though, so we'll see that when it comes up. There is time for some quick donations if you would like.
I would like, thank you. We have $5 from JW13. Hey Draco, awesome to see you running at GDQ. Best of luck to you and all the other runners during this event. Got time for one more?
Absolutely, please.
All right. We have $150 from User. Glad to finally have the chance to donate to such a good cause. Here's to the runners, the fans, and all the staff who make the event possible. Even more?
Yes, please.
All right. Here's $20 from GopherChuck5. Hey GDQ. For my first time being able to donate, I'd like to appreciate how this community has shown how you can make a difference in the world no matter what your talents are.
All right, so we have this boss coming up. I'll take a little moment to explain damage values here. The sword projectile deals 3 damage, the sword strike deals 4, the rolling attack deals 5, and the rocket boost deals 6. So the rolling attack deals a lot of damage, and we can exploit exhaustion reset by taking damage to do this. Good phase.
Don't worry, guys.
You guys thought I was dead there.
I didn't know you were going to go for that.
That is the only spot in the run where you can not only afford to take a death, it can potentially be faster. Since you can see I get a life bonus of 0. Oh, wow. So we're going into Submarine. This is another super technical stage where a lot of things can honestly go wrong. That was a little minor mistake that just happened there, but it's nothing major. This laser corridor that's coming up is one of the laggiest sections of the game, so I have a particular method for getting through here quickly. Each of these gates have 16 HP. If you remember what I said about the damage values, a rocket boost is 6 and a rolling attack is 5, so we can kill them in 3 hits by using a rocket boost and 2 rolling attacks, but it's also possible to accidentally just inflict contact damage on those gates, and indeed a lot of enemies in this game, and that is the worst thing you can do, because contact damage actually deals 1 damage and gives them the full iframe duration. So it's something that can happen to like virtually every enemy in the game, and it's something that can easily happen actually, since you want to try and remain in close proximity with things as much as possible. This set of corridors is meant to be an instant death hazard if the water catches up, but it's not going to catch up, so that's fine.
What? Water? What water?
I know, right? Just a little straightaway here with some, well, I was going to say optimized movement. That wasn't very optimal. Dropping the boost there.
No one knows unless you say it, okay?
I know, right? So this is a 3-phase boss. That first phase wasn't fantastic, but it's fine. That second phase was okay, though. I got a different movement state when I transitioned between those 2 phases, which actually helped out a bit. This phase 3 is like meant to be quite dangerous, but again, we can damage boost quite extensively and exploit having exhaustion reset to just keep rolling attacking into him. Use rocket boost. That was a pretty nice phase 3, so if you aren't really confident about what you're doing there, that boss is a legitimate death risk. Using high damage strats can also increase the risk of death in this game, because one of the quirks that's in this game is, say you've just taken damage, you have your iframes. If you then perform a boost, the game actually resets your iframes. So as soon as you come out of the boost, either by just ending it naturally or rolling attacking, you will no longer have iframes. So it's very possible to take a heavy hit, just reflexively release the boost button, because that's what you're supposed to do, and then you'll immediately take another hit after you come out of iframes. There's a couple of spots in the run where that can be extremely costly later on. I got a bit of a vertex issue there, but again, it's nothing huge. This mini-boss is pretty interesting. It's meant to be quite a few hits, but if I get the right combination of attacks, this is just 6 hits for phase 1. Nice. That was like perfectly done. This second phase is really irritating because of how erratic his movement is, and his arms can actually block your attacks, but that was still decent, and more importantly, I have a lot of health. There's a very precise skip here.
You got it. Hey,
nice.
There you go.
That is a lot more difficult to get than it looks, especially with barely any setup that I actually used there, and you can get stuck there for quite a while, and it's just very annoying. Clean Pyramid, though, this boss is a bit of a nightmare, and it's very RNG heavy, so I hope I get a good fight here. I'm just taking it safe here.
No.
Oh, he's not digging. All right.
Okay. Most of the RNG in this run comes from the bosses, though. Their behavior can be very erratic.
Nice. No dig.
Yeah,
no dig.
Zero dig fight. So that boss's actions are entirely random. There's virtually no way to control what he does. The worst thing that can happen in that fight is that he decides to dig underground, because that's just an automatic 5-second time loss, which you cannot mitigate. I was pretty lucky to get a zero dig fight there. I did take it a little conservatively with my damage management, but I just didn't want to take a death, because that's horrible. So this is, because this is a SNES Genesis game, it's the obligatory music stage. I just played the piano a bit there to the music.
Does it for a setup.
So a lot of the screens in this stage are actually a lot harder to go through optimally than they look. This path here requires a very specific movement path. And okay, I got a damage boost there, which actually helped a little bit, because my movement wasn't exactly where I needed it to be there. Using some of the movement routes in this game requires you to use Sparkster's momentum effectively. Damn it. I did miss that, and that makes the screen considerably more laggy, but it should be fine. All right, we'll deal. That cost like a couple of seconds to miss that jump input there, but it's nothing huge.
Good job with the simple section.
Yeah, thanks. That is a bit of a tripping up section for beginners learning the game, because if you fall into the tubes below the symbols at any point, they actually teleport you like partway back through the stage, so that's really something you don't want to happen. I'm trying to just make sure. I may stop for extra health here. Yeah, it's a marathon. Why not be safe?
Especially with the next boss coming up. It's a good thing to be safe.
I mentioned before about how you can take a lot of damage. This guy is the epitome of that. This is Axel Gear, the Black Knight rival to Sparkster. He hits the hardest out of any enemy in the game. And if he gives me the wrong attack pattern, such as that's the attack I really don't want to see, have to deal with. If he uses that, and I get hit by it twice in quick succession, it just kills you very quickly. That was still a good fight. So Axel is also completely random in his actions. You can't control what he does. And I was lucky enough to get a fight there where he just got in the corner fairly quickly, and I could once again just exploit rolling attacks to deal a lot of increased damage. This stage coming up is another extended auto-scroller, but I do need to take a couple of minutes first to explain how the boss of this stage is going to work. This game historically really has not received a lot of speed attention. Like, a handful of people have run it, but not too many. And I think one of the reasons for that is the boss of this stage, which is just hellish to try and perform. Even casually, people complained a lot about how this boss is way too difficult. It's a robot mech duel in space, again, against Axel Gear. And most of the fights just go the way of you die very quickly. He just beats you to death, you have no idea what you're doing, and people really get walled by this fight. I did some serious digging around in the game, like even with a RAM viewer, to look at the associated health values of what's actually going on to see how I could control this fight, and I made some discoveries. Number one, Axel's mech is identical to yours. You both have 224 HP. Your arms also have the same HP. And the moves you have and the damage you deal is also identical. So it's just that Axel is much better at playing the fight than the player is, and I tried to discover why that is. And it turns out there's a lot of hidden damage mechanics in this fight, which the game just does not bother to explain. You have the 2 punches that you can use on your mech. They deal a base of 12 damage, but what the game doesn't tell you is that if you, say, use a left jab, if you miss that and then immediately follow it up with a right, like a 1-2 punch, it deals increased damage up to a maximum of 20 per hit. And it deals more damage the closer that second punch is to the first missed hit. You can repeatedly spam a jab just by mashing, like doing right, but that then deals lower damage down to a minimum of 4 per hit. So there's multiple ways you can take the fight, but I prefer to just try and maximize damage output to make the fight last as little time as possible. Because this guy is also very random. He has 3 different phases where he behaves differently. First phase, he is completely random, and he could decide to just berserk rush you down. So I want to get that phase out the way as much as possible by getting his health lower. If I do that right, he should go into the second phase, where he will rush at me periodically and take pot shots. That's fairly easy to counter if I know how to expect it. The big problem is the third phase, where he's at critical HP, and he then starts a berserk rush where he chains left and right punches together, and he doesn't stop until I'm dead. I need to be able to damage race him at that point. So that's hopefully a good fight is just going to be me locking him in the corner and getting a fairly clean fight, but we'll see. There is time for a couple of donations, if you don't mind.
All right, we have $65 from Hypnotic Gato. Such a great event. Good luck to all the runners. $20 from Icebreaker 926. I love watching this every year. Time to give back what little I can. And thank you so much for all your donations. $25 from Donnie212. Love and support from Newfoundland.
And if it wasn't clear throughout that stage, I was just hanging out in the top left corner because, again, it's an auto-scroller, and once again, it's faster to do so. If you're just flying around the stage causing destruction, again, all you're going to do is cause lag in the game. So playing that stage in the way that I suppose is casually intended actually costs maybe a couple of seconds. So this is the boss fight coming up. This is complete, serious focus time for me. My couch can, of course, take over if they like, but I am just in full focus mode here. I really need this to go right. Taking a death here costs about a minute.
Yeah, so ideally, we do not want him to go into a defensive stance. It just kind of wastes time.
Another quick side note about this is if you're doing this on easy mode, this would be the final boss of easy mode.
Oh, he went defensive.
This isn't too bad, though, because I can break his arm down. Or this. If I break his arm down, then it makes the fight considerably safer. Not a particularly good fight, though, but this will win.
Yep.
It's kind of the trade-off. You want him to be more aggressive because then you can attack him more, but if he attacks more, you're more likely to die.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have liked to have had a faster fight there, but I'm very happy to have just gotten a deathless fight there. That fight looked really simple, but it really is not possible to overstate just how dangerous that fight is. I just happened to get quite a conservative pattern from him. So this is the final stage coming up. And first of all, we have amazing 3D rendered graphics on the Super Nintendo. Whoa! It's deadly 3D rendered graphics as well, because if I get crushed by these missiles at any point, they are instant death, regardless of remaining HP. And these are on cycles, so I'm taking a very specific path of how to get through these in what's going to be, I think, 5 missile cycles. There is a possible task cycle to meet where you actually have -1 missiles, but I've only gotten it a couple of times with save states and slowdown in practice. It's very difficult. Okay, no exhaustion. I don't mind that.
There's also a number of mini-bosses, this one being the first one.
Yeah. The next mini-boss, though, which Dagron will be familiar with, is the big problem. The core fight is perhaps, on measure, the most difficult fight in the game to play consistently. There is a lot of lag, it's easy to take a lot of damage, and the fight is quite extended. You need to take down a lot of different targets. Please. All right. As long as I don't take more than another full heart. Yeah, I've got 2 more hearts of healing here.
One thing I want to also mention, seizure warning at the end of this fight.
Yeah, that's right. This isn't a great start.
So you see these yellow rings around the core here. He wants to ideally take as much damage from, or utilize damage from them because they only do half a heart instead of the blue crystals do a full heart. That was a very good fight.
And yeah, photo epilepsy, sorry.
Now, coming up is the last boss of the game, and this is the one that tends to concern me the most because he's very random.
Yep, like all the other bosses, completely random. If I get the wrong attack patterns, there is little I can do to prevent a death, so all we've got to do is hope. I do have some different strats that I will be using, as well as some mental math to know when it's safe to use those strats, but just got to hope. Time is when the final boss explodes. If I take a mutual death at the same time, it doesn't count. It will send me back before the boss, so let's hope that doesn't happen.
Fingers crossed. Please, no fire breath.
This is a good start.
Yep. This can be a little scary. Oh, a lot of lightning.
Yeah, this causes a lot of lag.
Yeah. It's not the worst, but it causes a lot of lag.
Time!
Oh, time!
Hey!
Yeah,
Nice. Last possible.
Yeah.
We cannot overstate it enough how dangerous that fight can be.
Yeah, definitely. What was my finishing time?
Your time was 1911.
Oh my
God.
That is a run and a half. For reference, my PB is an 1857, and the world record is 1842. That was an insanely good run.
Wow.
That is everything I could have asked for.
Dude.
run.